coming
We
home.
began by meeting at a hotel in the ballroom, and from there we came upon a property that we are currently at today.
And I get on them all the time. We have to change our thinking if we're ever going to walk in the kingdom of God.
Well, hello and welcome to the Coming Home program. As you know, we typically have pastors and spiritual leaders on the program to introduce churches and different ministries to you, the viewer. And today we have some very special guests, and we're talking about a topic that is very, very important to my heart, and that is the sanctity of life and our concern for the unborn child. And so with me today is Executive Director Kris with Clarity Clinic in Dubuque. Kris, welcome to the program.
Thank you,
I don't know
Pastor
why I
Roland.
haven't had you on sooner. I don't know why. Your sister, Victoria, said, you should have Kris on sometime, and finally, I did it. I must have had a memory lapse or something, but welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And next to you is Dennis Riemann, and Dennis is also with Clarity Clinic, and he is the Chief Financial Officer. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So he's going to be making an appeal to you. We'll just be straight up with you, because Clarity Clinic is a nonprofit organization, and it is utterly dependent upon people like yourself who have a heart, a burden, and a concern for the unborn child and want to do whatever you can. And this is one way that you can do something, is to support in prayer and support financially. And Dennis will talk more about that here in just a few moments. But I would like for Kris to take the floor and share with you about Clarity Clinic and about what it is and how it got started and just about all the people whose lives that you touch.
Wow, how can I begin? Pastor, I started in 2008. Dennis started in 2007. He was a coach and a principal.
Really?
That's right.
And I was a designer, but now I take care of God's designs. And we have watched God literally increase the amount of women we can serve and the people in our communities that we meet. And when I started, I think we've seen 112 girls annually. And now this year alone, we have seen 729 client appointments between both locations. And right now we're in Dubuque. We're located at 2100 Asbury Road.
Yep.
But we began as Tri-State Pregnancy Center. And Tri-State Pregnancy Center was just a regular pregnancy center that didn't do any medical services. But in 2006, we transitioned through a focus on the family grant funding for an ultrasound to begin to do medical. And so right now our clinic has 4 volunteer physicians, and we operate under the medical license of our medical director. And all of our services are free. So we provide free pregnancy test, free STD test, and free limited obstetric ultrasounds. And so Clarity Clinic provides free options counsel support, free post-abortion counseling support. And we also go into the schools. So we're in eastern Iowa schools as far away as an hour radius. And so we go into Illinois and Galena schools, Bellevue, as far away as up in Western Dubuque School District and Dubuque School District. And our clinic in Platteville right now has also served up in Potosi and Dodgeville. And we bring a message of abstinence, education, and traditional marriage to that forefront. And this year we've served over 2,000 students that we've educated.
Oh my.
Yeah, so I'm really excited because, you know, most women don't realize that this is like an epidemic with women that are faced with this decision. You know, over 50% of women that are having an unplanned pregnancy are young. 58% are in their 20s. And so it's really relevant that we're in the communities where there's universities or colleges.
Yes.
Because they're very vulnerable. You know, Pastor, they're alone for the first time, away from parents. And so they're having to make that decision a lot of times without being at home with their mom or dad. Mm-hmm. And so they're vulnerable to make decisions out of fear. And so what we try to do at Clarity Clinic is transform that fear into confidence. And we do that by giving them the truth. We give them facts about the risk and side effects with abortion, emotional and physical. And it's all documented through our affiliate, CareNet. Have you heard of CareNet?
I've heard of CareNet, yes.
CareNet is an affiliate for pregnancy centers across the nation. And they have about 1,200, just a little bit over 1,200 centers like ours that we all do.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, we all do this. And so it's a linear approach to the services that we provide. We all do the same thing. And we make sure that that woman, when she leaves, she is equipped with resources in her community. We do not refer for abortion, but we feel that the strongest point that we can give that young woman is a printed picture of what's going on in her womb.
Yes.
Through the ultrasound.
Yes.
And 90% of women that see that ultrasound and they watch that little baby's beating heart will change their decision, and they'll choose life.
Do you find it difficult almost to say that or talk about this without tearing up or getting emotional when you think about this? About that there's a life inside, there's a child in there. And you know, for viewers that are watching, and maybe if you're watching this program right now, maybe you know someone, or you have a granddaughter or daughter or someone that has been placed in a position where maybe they didn't even know that there was such a thing as Clarity Clinic, or a place like Clarity Clinic that they could go to. I was told recently that they don't have anybody to talk to.
Exactly.
And so when they come to you, they have somebody that will listen to them, that will not judge them.
Right. Well, and if you consider the fact that most teenagers that are sexually active, the last thing they want is for their mother or father to know that they are.
Yes.
And so they're sneaking around. And in college, the same thing. So if they find themselves in an unplanned pregnancy, likelihood that they even have a doctor that they're affiliated with in that community is not, you know, the case. And so most often they go to their health center. And, you know, let's face it, when you have thousands of kids on campus, are you a number in that health center? They're just going to give you a list. Where if they come to a pregnancy center like ours, or others like ours, they're going to receive the help that they need with one-on-one. No one's in a hurry. We're here to hear why you're feeling this way. Why are you afraid? What is the reason why you feel like you can't carry this child to term? Do you want to be actively involved in making a plan for adoption? You're in the driver's seat. You have the option to make that decision. Are you being pressured? Who's pressuring you? Do you know what the law says about someone who's trying to coerce you into having an abortion? We are there to give them the truth and the facts. And that's valuable, because when it's all said and done, I mean, sure, it's probably the most difficult day when you go home from work and you know that someone left the clinic saying, I'm still undecided. I think I might still go have an abortion. That's a sad day for us.
I bet.
We feel, but we always tell them, look, if you do go that route, we will not judge you. We want you to know that you can come back to us and you can receive free post-abortion counsel support, because you're going to need that support system. And we always want to find out what their support system is as well.
That's good. That's important, isn't
So,
it? I would like to, if you can, just from the moment, first of all, how do people hear? How do young women or young girls hear about Clarity Clinic? How would they even hear or know that you existed?
I'm glad you brought that up. You know, for us, every dollar has to be raised.
Yep.
And so we all know how expensive marketing can be. Marketing is probably one of the top things in our budget line items. And so one way for people to find out about us is when we go into the churches. Mm-hmm. So you might have a church that's filled with 2 services with 300 people or less. But at that point, you don't know whose niece, whose aunt, whose best friend is listening to the services provided by Clarity Clinic for free, so that when their friend gets into the situation,
yes,
they're actually going to call us. And it gives the ability for dentists to get us the support that we need, because how else are we going to get in front of hundreds of people? The only way we can is by having that partnership agreement with churches to be able to come in and share what we provide, and therefore raise the funds. And Dennis, I'd like for you to share a little bit more about that, because we don't receive government funding, and we do on purpose not choose to receive that, because we like to be able to pray with those clients and share the gospel message with them. So, you know, we do have some annual fundraisers, and Dennis, can you share a little bit about the baby bottle fundraisers? And
Yeah, you know, our budget at the Dubuque Clinic is a little over about $350,000.
Oh, my.
When you run a medical clinic, you got a lot of insurances and you know, things like that, and then all the programs, our abstinence education program with our speakers going out into the schools. We provide these services to the schools free of charge. Right. Because they don't have it in their budget. They'll say, yeah, you can come in and do it, but we can't give anything for it, so we provide all the funds ourselves. Well, as was mentioned earlier, I believe, we get no government funding because, like Kris said, we do share the message of the gospel with these young gals if they're open to hearing it. And so you got to be a little bit careful if you're doing that and the government's supporting you, because they have a tendency to want to tell you what you can and can't do. Right. So we've decided years ago we were going to do it God's way, not the government's way. So we knew we would have to be totally 100% donor supported. And so we started going into the schools and provide that services, which was great. And as a result, I was able to contact and get into churches and speak at their Sunday services. Praise or God. Catholic churches might be Saturday and Sunday services. They give me, 5 to 7 minutes, and we share about what the clinic does and how they can help. And a lot of those places we do what's called our baby bottle fundraiser, and what happens is people will take a baby bottle home with them after the service. They get to keep it for 2 or 3 weeks. They fill it full of their loose change, or they fill it full of cash, or they fill it put a check in there, and then they return it 2 weeks later, and we pick all the bottles up and we let the churches know how they did. The churches have just been responding remarkably. One of the things that they did, Pastor, was a few years ago, I was at a workshop on that was done by Bruce Wilkinson, who's a Christian author, and they had done a survey of all the pregnancy centers in the country, and they took their total budget of all the pregnancy centers in the country and they divided it by the number of babies that were being saved from abortion. Oh, and when they averaged that out, they figured it takes about $1,200 to save a baby. About $1,200. Amazing. And so when I speak in the churches, I present that to the people who are sitting there saying, can you save a baby? Can you and your spouse save a life yourselves? And so as a result of that, our baby bottle fundraisers have been, when I first did the first few years, we were bringing in, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. Now with this $1,200 pledge that we've put out there, or not pledge, but donation, where people can actually say, you know what, we're going to save a baby. Our family is going to save a baby ourselves. I just finished doing a baby bottle fundraiser out in Manchester and Masonville and Ryan, which is a good 45 minutes from here. Sure. And so on, and they turned in $21,000. Wow. We received 7 checks for $1,200. People wanted to save a baby themselves. So God's really moving in His people to really support what we're doing. And so I would encourage any pastors that are listening, or any people that are listening who go to a church that haven't had us there to speak yet, to tell their priest or pastor, we should have Clarity Clinic come and share so we can get on board with them, because that's a big part. Last year we raised about $60,000 doing baby bottle fundraisers. So it was a huge part of what we do. And then of course we do our annual banquet, which is down at the Grand River Center here in Dubuque, free of charge. We have a speaker come in. It's a beautiful evening. It's a free meal. And then at the end of the evening we do an appeal for people to help us, and many people choose that night. We've had people that said, we want to save a baby a month, and they will give us $14,000. We've had people that given us $12,000. They say, we want to save 10 babies. We just had our banquet here in October, and we raised that night at the banquet for Platteville and Dubuque. We raised about $270,000, a little over $250,000 at that one night banquet.
There's no question. That's God.
Oh, it's God.
That's totally God.
There's several, I've got some questions I'd like to stop and ask. I've got about 3 of them, and I want to talk about, you talked about saving a life. And I know that you can address this. It's not just about saving the child's life, but it's what you are sparing that mother, that young mother, from, and maybe you can talk about that, Kris, about how does abortion affect a young woman, and not just her and her emotionally, but physically, the side effects of having an abortion. How does it affect families? I mean, can you speak to that?
That's one of the reasons why we're trying to bring these classes into churches. We're going to be contacting pastors this coming year in 2016 to basically educate leaders on how abortion affects women and men. We can't leave out the men in this scenario.
That's true.
So, you know, if 1 in 3 women have had an abortion, that means 1 in 3 men also have had it. And so it affects relationships, because it's like if you took someone who was in a post-traumatic disorder situation, so many times they'll have, 28% will have flashbacks, and they carry that guilt and the shame from it. Many times in this situation, they're in that grief or loss of that child in the situation, and so for many years, women can carry that post-abortion grief for decades. We've had women that have come in their 50s that had it back in their 20s. And so it took them that long to overcome. But how many broken relationships and marriages, you know, most 50% of relationships after an abortion end in divorce. That's a statistic. And so we always tell the girl, if you're making this decision that you're choosing abortion based on your boyfriend, here's the stats. You know, this is what's going to happen. You know, 50% likelihood that this won't work. And, you know, future relationships may have struggles as well, unless you can get that help. And so, you know, part of what Dennis is talking about, how we partner with churches, is we want to support those parents with teenagers. And one of the programs that we provided, I brought this with me, it's called Boundaries. And Boundaries is a new program that we've started this past year. But it educates parents on the social media, all the different dangerous apps.
Right.
So I've had 4 teenagers, and I know, I don't know half the apps that are out there. I have an iPhone, and I have apps on my phone, just like many of you watching. But do you know what apps are on your kids' phones?
How would they find out?
Well, this program called Boundaries, we send in a leadership that's trained to explain to parents those apps and how to put barriers and boundaries on their children's social media, whether it's with an iPad, a smart TV, a cell phone, because you can put passwords on your kids' phones and they can go under settings and they can change them. So do you know your children's passwords? Do you know what apps they're on? Because every day there's new apps and there's dangerous apps. And so we educate the parents on that. And so that puts them in the frontline position to be a barrier between that and what's out there. And we know that pornography affects many young men and women. So we educate on that and how that affects the brain and the person involved in that. We talk about physical and emotional and social boundaries, healthy relationships, and we even touch on human trafficking and the risk. Social media right now is one of the #1 places predators will grab victims. And so we have partnered with a nonprofit called Set Free, and Set Free and Breaking Traffic are 2 nonprofits that work with us in Eastern Iowa to bring educational awareness about that it's here. And so when we come into church youth groups, when we're invited by youth pastors, we not only meet with the youth in that group, but we meet with the youth group parents.
That's wonderful.
And we meet with the parents first, and then about a week to 2 weeks later, we meet with the students. And we actually have people that were involved in levels of human trafficking that share their testimony, so that the kids get that one-on-one firsthand from, look, this is reality. It's not just something your parents are telling you.
Right.
This is the truth.
You know, and again, I think how many young people, you've covered so many bases already. We should have scheduled about 3 hours of recording, so we'll have to get you back in. In fact, you know what I'd like to do, Kris? I would like to have you, if you think this is a good idea, I'd like to have you bring sometime in for an interview a couple of the young women that are willing to go on television and give their testimony of how this has helped them and why they're glad that Clarity Clinic was there for them. Think we could do that?
Yeah, we could see if
We'll
that
do
works.
that. And so back to this. So again, all these the Boundaries programs. So the way that parents get to know about this program that you do is through churches,
Through our website,
through your website.
clarityclinic.com. Our website for our donors is partnersofclarityclinic.com, or they can just look us up and call us and come for a tour and talk to Dennis or myself and learn more about our programs.
Yep. I have a question I've been sitting on, not sure if I should ask it, but is there ever a possibility that that a doctor, if a young woman comes into the doctor for an exam because she thinks she's pregnant, are there any doctors out there that are referring these young women to you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm glad
I know locally here, Mercy Maternal Health sends almost all their clients to us,
Yep.
and they receive a
Praise
free,
God.
a free ultrasound. But we also have a program that I wanted to share too. When the girl chooses to parent, we have this program called First Steps, and our Platteville location also has it. But it takes them all the way up to age 2, and it educates them in parenting skills. And so it's an amazing thing that girls come, they receive the classes, and they earn while they learn free material resources. So they'll have diapers and baby items, and it's all donated.
So you have, now let me think, if you were to break this down into like 4 or 5 different things that you do, number 1 is the abstinence program, right? To go into the schools, and by the way, if you're watching this, you're obviously a believer in Christ or you're a seeker, and maybe this is speaking to your heart. I want you to be thinking about people that you can talk to, having watched this, and you can direct them to KFXB's website anytime after this airs so that they could watch it. Just say to your pastor or say to whoever, go on KFXB's website. You've got to see this program so that they can, because the awareness, creating the awareness is a big part of what you do. Awareness to the young girls that are finding themselves in this situation, awareness to parents and families of all these different services. So you do abstinence programs in the school. You when they first come in, what's it like? What can you take us through the steps from the time a young woman walks through the door?
She first would meet the receptionist, and she would receive a bottle of water just in case she's going to need an ultrasound, so she can get a full bladder, so we get a great picture. She will meet with an advocate who will talk to her about her situation, and then she'll meet with a registered nurse, and then she will get a pregnancy test. If she wants a free STD test, we provide that through urine testing. And then she will get educated through the nurse. If she's at the stage of gestation that she can have an ultrasound, we would provide that for free. If not, we'd reschedule her out. If she's post-abortive, we would set her up for free post-abortion support. And so if she's pregnant and she's wanting to keep it, she's able to get into our classes that day if she wants.
That's it. So
and this program helps with interview skills. If they don't have a job, it helps them to get on the steps, the path, the roadmap that they need to get their education completed. We want them to reach their goals. We don't want them just to end up on the system and count on the system. It's meant for its purpose, but it's temporary. And we want them to see that focus, that they reach for their goals and they get to where they want to be and not to give up.
For 2 years afterwards.
Yes.
That's amazing.
And it's free.
We have about 6 minutes left, and so I want you to share anything that we've missed that
Well, I think it's very valuable if you don't have a pregnancy center in your community to recognize the need for the services that we provide. I mean, I talked about in the beginning how we have served 729 client appointments in 2015. In 2014, between both Platteville and Dubuque location, we had 475 clients. There's a reason why we have gone up in numbers. Obviously, there's a need, or they wouldn't be coming.
Yes.
And I know that with the economic situation our country is in right now, there's a lot of people that are struggling financially, and you know, that is 70% of pregnant women that are considering abortion choose it because of financial reasons.
Isn't that so?
And we talked a little bit about, you know, 58% of the women that are seeking an abortion are in their 20s. If you talk about most of those women, 56% are unmarried and maybe cohabitating or not cohabitating, okay? And if you think about it this way, 61% of those women have one or more children. Okay, so 58% are in their 20s and 61% have one or more children. Obviously, many of them are coming to us because of financial reasons. They want someone to talk to. Give me a reason why I should keep this baby. Because right now I'm struggling. And you know, we work with different maternity homes in the area, and there's Mary's Inn and there's others, Ruth Harbor in Des Moines, and I know that there's the Elizabeth House up in Madison. And so we support the work that all of those organizations provide. But one thing I do see a need for is to have a place where moms with little children can also come, because there's many that are homeless and they're basically couch surfing to have a place to go. And you know, that also puts a position of danger for people that don't have a safe place to live. And so if you think about children and child abuse and how things can happen to kids when they're young, if they're in a vulnerable situation, not a safe environment, those kids are at risk, you know, to be able to be put in a position where they could be raped or sexual abuse or physical abuse, because, you know, out of necessity, many of these single moms are living with a boyfriend. Well, that boyfriend might be helping pay the bills, but she's working too. And what happens to that child when boyfriend's home and mom's not there? You know, who's making sure that that's a safe environment for that child? And who's going to tell? Because I looked at a statistic that I found on a website called Darkness to Light, and it was telling me a little bit about incidents of child sexual abuse in our country and how it affects the children and how many of them are in our schools. In fact, 81% of child sexual abuse incidents for all ages occur with one perpetrator, 6 to 11. So imagine a 6-year-old to an 11-year-old, okay? And think about that. In 2006, arrests for online youth victim case constituted 1.2% of all arrests of sex crimes against children. So the social media aspect, whether we're in a church talking to a youth group parent and their youth group kids, you also have to take into consideration that parents that have children maybe in 4th grade or, you know, primary school age, they need to be vigilant, because it's just a matter of a year and their kids are going to be exposed. In fact, in the state of Wisconsin right now, there was a article that I read yesterday that was talking about how they want to start education on masturbation in 4th grade.
Oh, that's
and
probably,
so if you think about that, you know, one thing about our programs that we bring into the schools, they're free. Some school districts, and you can check in your school district to find out, is your school district charging you per kid receiving the sexual health education? Because if they're going through a county health nurse or an affiliate that receives CAP grant money in their area, that CAP grant money might be affiliated with a partnership agreement, and they're going to hand out their information to those kids, which many times provides comprehensive sex education, where they tell the student, you know, if you're sexually active, this is what you need to do, and your parents don't need to know. You can come for an appointment and we'll set it up, and we'll set you up with an account, and you'll have a username and password, and your parents don't need to know. In fact, they will even provide invasive procedures with the arm implants that they provide.
The school can
Yes,
do this?
no, the organizations that provide comprehensive sex education, that provide those contraceptives, and they don't need the parents' approval. If they're 14 and older, they can go for it. So
we are in a war, aren't we? I mean, this is, and you're a Christian watching this, this is kingdom work.
yeah,
It's not separate from the church. It is part of the church's business, and the church's ministry is to reach out.
yeah.
And we've got about 30 seconds left. And closing this segment, Kris, is there anything more you'd like to say?
I would just like to thank you for having us on today, but I'd like to tell each one of you to think about, you know, many people will fight for a child that's sick in the hospital, the child that's got an illness or a disease, but how many people will fight for an unborn child? Is the life of a child that's been born more valuable than that which is unborn?
Wow.
Consider that.
You know, I know we talked about the need for financial support, but everybody can pray.
Exactly.
And I know I mentioned earlier that one of our gals works at another clinic, and they meet for prayer. The directors do every morning from 9 to 10. So what I do at 9 o'clock, if I'm not busy, I will get into prayer. I'll get into sync with them in prayer for about the first 10 or 15 minutes to just join my prayers. So is there any certain time of day that you're doing that people could just pray for you?
Well, we open our doors at 9 o'clock, and every morning we pray as a team, and
Yep.
I would just welcome you. We covet the prayers of the saints. We covet people praying for us because it is a spiritual warfare.
It is.
It's life and death. If you know you're going to work and someone will live and someone will die.
Jesus.
And so you have to be sharp and you have to be prepared. But I mean sharp in God's word and sharp and raised up in prayer for reaching out. So thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank you for watching this segment of the program, but I want you to stay tuned because, maybe we need to take a couple of minutes, Kris, for you to talk about, because you were very instrumental in the opening up of the clinic up in, I want to start to say across Platteville, Wisconsin, recently within the last year.
Yes.
And so in the second half of our program today, you're going to be hearing from Karen Bradley, who is the executive director up there.
Yeah.
And so she'll be talking probably about a lot of these same things, but that's okay. But for the viewers up in that area that happen to be watching this, please stay tuned for what Karen's going to share with you about what their goals are, what their needs are up there in the Platteville area. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Well, thank you for staying tuned for the second half of our program. You'll notice that Kris is not on the set now. Instead, we have Karen Bradley, who is the executive director at the Clarity Clinic in Platteville, Wisconsin. I want to welcome you on the program.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Karen, and you know, you've watched the first half of this, and you've heard a lot already about Clarity Clinic. And Karen, I understand you've been with Clarity Clinic for over 2 years.
Correct.
And you opened the Platteville office in January of 2014.
Correct.
So you must have spent some time in Dubuque then.
I did.
You did.
I did.
So I'm going to let you just take off a little bit, and you'll notice that Dennis is still with us because he's got some things to share too. But I just want to thank you again for making it important to stay tuned for this second half, especially if you live in the southwest Wisconsin area or the Dubuque area for that matter. But because Karen this is a new work, somewhat of a new work up in Platteville, and it's important that you're watching this program right now. And so listen closely and hear what Karen has to say, what God would ask you to do to be involved in what they're doing in Platteville. So Karen?
Thank you. Well, I just want to start off by saying thank you to both Kris and Dennis and Clarity Clinic in Dubuque, and also to all the donors and all the people who have supported Clarity Clinic in Platteville. We are now able to go out on our own in January, and we're very excited about that, but we do need your help. So what I wanted to tell you is that I wanted to begin by saying that I started with Clarity about 2.5 years ago. My background is as a nurse. So I was trained in limited OB ultrasound. So I am able to look for 3 things, ideally, during the ultrasound. And that is to make sure that the pregnancy is viable and that it's in the uterus, the gestational age of the baby, and then also to make sure that there's a heartbeat. So all those things are very important. We also do education on different sexually transmitted infections called STIs or STDs, because those can also affect pregnancy and affect the baby. It's very important that our clients know about that, because a lot of times they don't have any symptoms with them. So
that's an important
the young
point.
women don't even know that it's happening. So
You said they don't even know that if they have it, they may not even know that they have it, and that can affect the baby. I heard you say that.
Right, right.
Wow, how important that is.
Yeah. So not only would you be dealing with a pregnancy then, you'd also be dealing with a possible complication of the pregnancy.
Wow. Jesus.
So one of our biggest things right now is women's health, and it's all over the place. They're talking about women's health, and the wonderful thing about Clarity Clinic in Dubuque and of Southwest Wisconsin and the other pregnancy centers out there is that we perform the ultrasounds to make sure that the woman who is having the baby is healthy. Our biggest concern is for an ectopic pregnancy, which is a pregnancy that's not located where it should be. It could be in the fallopian tube or your abdominal cavity, and that would potentially put the woman who is pregnant at risk for death, ultimately. Wow. So that's one of the very important things about the ultrasounds. And another important thing in our area of Southwest Wisconsin, because we're a little bit different than Dubuque, we are in more of a rural area. I am from Dodgeville originally. I have lived in Platteville for almost 13 years. So I know a lot of the area, and it means a lot to me. So we would love to get into more schools, youth groups, churches, anything that we can do our education on abstinence, the Boundaries program that Kris mentioned before, and also let people know about our services, both in the clinic and with our First Steps programs. One of the biggest things that I think I've noticed since I started with Clarity is that I think a lot of us take for granted the support that we have. A lot of us have caring parents, brothers and sisters, yes. But some do not have that luxury, or maybe they have something, they've battled with a drug problem in the past or something like that, where they've sort of maybe burned their bridges. And we then become their only support system. So yes. We say, we want to help you whatever we can. So we provide them with any resources that they may need, like help with housing or food or medical care. We can help guide them on where to go with that. We are also there for them, again, with the First Steps program, where we're giving them education in return for baby items or maternity clothes.
And explain that. You say if they come in for the classes, then you give them things that they can use.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So with our First Steps program, it's an educational program where women can choose what they want to learn about, say childbirth, or bathing baby, or stopping smoking. If they come in, and whoever else is going to be taking care of the baby, such as the father or a mother or a sister, they can come in as well and earn baby bucks, and they would actually earn double baby bucks if they brought in someone with them. And so they can use, say, one baby buck and get a pack of diapers, or they can save up and get a crib or a stroller, and all of those items are donated. So they're either in very nice condition or gently used. So we do collect those donations as well.
You know, I did think about this in the first half of the program today when Kris was on, but maybe you can do this. But are you, without mentioning names, you know, there's nothing more powerful than a testimony. Mm-hmm. Do you have a short story you can share about a person, without mentioning names, and how the clinic and what you've done how it's helped them? Can you share a testimony without mentioning the names?
I think a lot of them are affected either by past miscarriages, ectopic pregnancies, mistakes they've made in the past. Without getting too specific, I would say that, you know, we've had young women who have made poor choices, and they admit that, and haven't we all made mistakes?
That's right.
And they're doing their best, but financially it's beating them down. You know, maybe they're not in a good relationship at home. There's so many factors that go into it. Every story is a little bit different.
Sure.
One thing I have noticed with a few of our clients is that the ones who have had miscarriages especially, they are so thankful to be able to have that ultrasound, because they so desire to see their baby growing. And what a lot of people will say is this makes it a lot more real, because they are able to actually watch the ultrasound. I'm not the only one as the nurse watching the ultrasound, the client is as well. And we do invite the family in, or the support system of the client in for the ultrasound as well, if they desire.
Now you mentioned earlier that you were a nurse, okay? And I've heard you talk about that you, in what you do there at the clinic, that you do some of the nursing, but you are the executive director.
Correct.
So you do a broad variety, you oversee, I should say, a broad variety of different services.
Yes.
Yes.
So the whole spectrum, I guess.
Whole spectrum. So the responsibility to keep things humming and running smoothly is somewhat on your shoulders.
Yes.
And you have directors underneath of you that have different responsibilities, right?
Yes.
What are some of those directors?
Yes. We have directors, a director of client services
Okay.
that watches, you know, just keeps everyone on the same page as far as the advocates. We have the director of education.
Okay.
So she goes into the schools. I'm missing one. I think.
No, I think
Sorry,
that's
is that it?
Because you do the nurse man, you do them both.
Yes,
Nurse manager
I guess
and the
that's why I'm
executive
forgetting it. So not only will I be in the executive director role, but by becoming our own entity in Southwest Wisconsin, I'll also be the nurse manager. I'm the only nurse right now that is trained to do the ultrasounds. And we are looking for nurses to be trained, and they would have to be an RN. It does take about $5,000 to train a new nurse, so we do want to make sure it's a right fit. So that's part of our financial need, along with just running the clinic, is having another nurse to be able to do the ultrasounds and to demonstrate life.
Okay. I want to speak to the viewers for a moment. Now, if you watch, and I assume you have watched the first half of the program, and you've heard the human side of this, which involves the emotions, and not just the physical, but the emotions and the very life of and the future of not only the child, but the mother, or the mother-to-be, and her family. And so many people are affected by this, and there is such a great need. And I want to take a hero's badge and pin it on you seriously, because of what you're doing, because you are like a hero. You are literally rescuing people. You are rescuing, you're saving lives. And I think that really deserves a hero's reward. I don't know, I just felt, I don't want to say that. But you are fairly new there in Platteville, and as you said, you have various needs. You need a nurse, and to do that, you need money. And so maybe this would be a good time to have Dennis share where that money comes from, and how you raise those funds.
Sure. Well, you led in perfectly for me, Pastor, and I appreciate that. Actually, you know, what we do at the clinic, both in Platteville and Dubuque, God has called us to do.
Yes.
We're just
It
doing
is a
what
call.
God's called us to do. That's what, when I speak in churches, and people that have heard me speak will laugh that they heard you say what you did, because what I tell the people when I'm standing in church, I said, people call us heroes all the time. You mentioned how you wanted to put a hero's badge on Karen or Kris or whatever, and they do. But you know what? We're just doing what God's called us to do, so we don't look at ourselves as heroes. The heroes are the donors.
Wow.
Because Karen cannot do what she's doing if she doesn't have the financial backing to be able to help these young girls that come in who are in need, to be able to go in the schools and do our abstinence education program, do post-abortion counseling. we can't do any of it if we don't get the donors to support us, because, as we said in the first segment, we're 100% donor supported. We don't get money from the federal government. Planned Parenthood gets $350 million a year. They do not have a financial issue. They got all the money they want.
Our money.
Our money, taxpayer money, that's right.
There you go.
But we rely strictly on the donor.
Yes.
And now, with the Clarity Clinic of Southwest Wisconsin going out on their own, and I'm speaking directly to the people of Southwest Wisconsin, this is your pregnancy center.
That's right.
This is your pregnancy center. This isn't ours, it's yours. So if you want to see this Clarity Clinic of Southwest Wisconsin succeed, continue to help these young girls. Like they said, Kris said they had almost 300 client appointments so far this year with people coming in or doing the First Steps program. They need your help. They're going to need you to make it happen. And so again, you know, if you know of a pastor in your church, contact Karen at the Platteville office. Have the pastor do it, or you talk to the pastor and you contact Karen and say, we want you to come and speak at our church. They will be doing a banquet. They may do it in coordination with, we did a banquet together this past year. We haven't decided if we're going to do it together in October. If they're going to do their own, we're going to do our own. That's still up. They're going to do an auction just like we do an auction. Ours is set for April 28th. So we have to talk with them to see if we want to do that together or if they want to have their own up there. Sometimes you can get more people at your own if it's closer to home. They don't have to drive all the way to Dubuque. So we have to work that out. But they'll get information. Karen will make sure information gets out to people, whether the auction's going to be in Dubuque or whether they're going to have their own. And this is a chance for the businesses to step up and say, we want to donate. This is also a chance for individuals to step up and say, we want to donate to your auction. We'll donate a farmer might be, let's say, well, let's donate a quarter of a cow. You know, a quarter of, you know, or we have,
right?
yeah, we have a couple every year that donates a week of their townhouse out in Colorado. So people might be able to do things. There's great bakers out there, and some lady will say, I'll bake a pie a month for a whole year for your auction. So you can get so many neat auction items besides just what the businesses can do. But it is just critical, Pastor, that people realize they're the heroes. And what we want them to do is do what the people are doing in the churches and say, you know what, dear, why don't we save a baby? Why don't us as a family save a baby? And then they'll send a check for $1,200 to the clinic because that's what it costs to save a baby. So there's so many ways that they're able to help. And like you say, they need to pray because it's a battle out there to help these young girls because the devil does not like what we're doing. He does not like what we're doing. And he rejoices when one of God's special unborn children is destroyed. And every time a clinic like what Karen's doing up there and what we're doing in Dubuque is saving one of those child, it just makes the devil all the angrier.
Yes.
And so it's a spiritual warfare. But you know what? God's on the throne, he wins. Jesus showed that at the cross, that we win. So we just need to keep battling every day. And we need supporters to step up and say, we need to help this clinic in Wisconsin. They're going out on their own because we down at Dubuque have helped them this past about almost 2 years, financially. But now with them going off on their own, we're going to be going on, we're on our own, they're on their own. We'll still work together, but they're going to be their own financial entity. So they need the help of the people in Southwest Wisconsin to make this work. And with all those small towns up there, it can very well be done. They raised over $80,000 at the banquet when we did it together, just up in Platteville, $80,000. Wow. Their budget is going to be about $160,000 to $180,000. So that lets people know, how much needs to be raised to help the clinic up there. I'd say $160,000, $180,000. Okay. And like I say, you raised almost half of it just at the banquet.
Yes.
But going forward, to be able to continue to get in those schools, do the things they want to do, they need the help of the people of Southwest Wisconsin.
Yeah. There's a verse of scripture that comes to mind, and I want to speak this to the viewers. I may not quote it correctly. I can't even tell you where it's at, but it's in the Bible. I know that. And it says that God gives us wisdom to gain wealth so that his covenant may be established in the earth. And you know, God has blessed, there are some people that are just givers. That is their gift and calling. It is to give. And so as the appeal is being made here today, I'm saying let God touch your heart. Whether it's for you personally to give, or whether it's for you to tell other people, whether it's to talk to your pastor, but please, please get involved in this. And I was going to, I don't know that we talked about this in the, were you done, Dennis? I didn't want to cut you short.
Yeah, that's good. I want Karen to be able to share anything else she needs to.
I know that you also have volunteers, and I think it'd be good to talk about the volunteers.
Absolutely.
Because you not only need financial resources and a nurse, but you need volunteers, and
Yes.
let's talk about that.
Yes, most of our volunteers will help in our First Steps program. So when the new seasons come, they'll help exchange all the clothes over from winter to summer, vice versa. And also reception, so that we can have more First Steps appointments. They'll sit at the desk and answer phone calls and help us out in the office area, so that maybe if we have 2 other staff, we could have 2 appointments at the same time. And I'd also like to point out that we've been so blessed this last couple months where our appointments have actually doubled.
Praise
And
God.
God is working, and we want you to know that we're praying for you as well. And we're not here to just receive, but we want to give back to you. And I agree with Dennis. I don't feel like a hero. I'm using what God's given me to do, and thank goodness I'm a nurse and I'm able to help in that respect. But I do want to make a point too that we are in such a rural area in Platteville. It's not only Platteville that's doing this. It's Southwest Wisconsin.
Yes.
And if you were to look up the pregnancy resource centers in Wisconsin, we are the only one from Dubuque to Madison.
Oh
the
my.
next closest is Madison. That means up north of us, that's we have a lot of the other kind of clinics that are out there that are all over the place, and they're able to do this because of their funding, but we are donation based, and I just want to stress that we're the only ones in this area. So I really feel like the time is now, if you want to make a stand, so that we are able to help in smaller communities like Darlington and Dodgeville and Boscobel and Fenimore and Lancaster. We've had a lot of faithful donors over the years from those areas, and they really want to be involved, and we want to be able to help them and maybe travel to those areas to help with the clients that maybe can't afford or don't have a car or can't
Yes.
afford to get to Platteville.
And on this volunteers, you mentioned 2 or 3 things that you have volunteers to do. What are you needing now in the way of volunteers? Because people are watching to say, boy, I would like to contribute. I would like to do something. I can give a little bit, but I've got more time than money. So what could they do to help? Just come in and talk to somebody?
Yes.
Or
yes.
call in and say, I would love to be a part of this. I would love to help. And what do you have that I could do?
Come into our clinic and take a look. Let us explain inside the clinic what we're doing and inside First Steps, because I think a lot of people, when they come in, they don't realize how much we do and how beautiful it is in there. And the volunteers, we always need help, maybe cleaning or just donating items that maybe you bought at a garage sale that are really in good condition. So donating your time for half a day or over a lunch hour or a whole day would be fantastic.
What about babysitters? Do the people that come in sometimes have other little children that need to be watched while they're meeting with you? Or?
Yes, they do. And we have a separate room where the children can sit and perhaps watch like a Veggie Tales or something like that, or sometimes they'll bring in little toys to do that as well.
I tell you what, next to the gospel itself, honestly, I gotta be careful, because this is so serious. It is so important that next to bringing people to Jesus Christ for the salvation of their soul is to save the life of an unborn child.
Yes.
I don't know what work for the kingdom of God on the face of the earth could be any more important than that, other than bringing someone to faith in Jesus. And so this is very emotional to me.
Well, you know, and Pastor, just to add to that too, and I talk about this in churches too, the Bible says there's 6 things that God hates.
right.
I think anytime God hates something, you better raise your ears
That's
and
right,
listen.
that's right.
Okay? And one of those 6 things is the shedding of innocent blood.
You're right.
And you think of any more innocent blood than a child in the womb.
That's right.
You can tell how much it grieves God.
Yes.
You know, so, and that's what we're trying to stand for is just really making a difference. You know, sometimes you get a little frustrated, like, we saved 245 babies this year.
This year.
Isn't that fantastic? 245 babies are alive that should have been aborted, and that's great. And of course, me, the way I am, I get a little frustrated because I'm thinking, yeah, but we destroyed 1 million. What's 245 to 1 million that were destroyed? But God continues to remind me it's 245 more that would have been another statistic.
Yes.
And so you are making a difference, so keep plowing forward.
I just had a vision of something. These babies are going to be in heaven someday.
Amen.
I can see, I can almost see this child come up and look up into your eyes and say, thank you,
Thank you.
because you cared and you gave. I lived. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I made a difference. You know, my life had purpose. And the thankfulness. You know, it's amazing. I wonder how many children, do you know how many children that are spared through agencies such as Clarity Clinic grow up and find out that their mother almost had them aborted?
Yeah.
And when they find that out, I mean, what that must.
Yeah. Usually, the speaker at our banquet, we've had speakers who had their mother was going to abort them
Yep.
and decided not to, and so they share that, and that's been a very emotional thing for them, you know, to know that that's happened. So, you know,
Yep.
we are just. I mean, I'm blessed to go to work every day, knowing I'm going to work for God.
Yes.
And help and save His innocent children.
Amen.
And again, we just want the people out there to know that you're the heroes. You're the ones
Wow.
who behind the scenes are saying, we're going to support you financially or as a
Yes.
volunteer or whatever. So, you know, that's what keeps us going every day,
Yes.
Pastor, is
Yep.
to know you got people. When I go speak in a church and people walking out saying, keep up the good work,
Yes.
we're behind you, and so on. It's just, that's
Yep.
what it's all about.
Praise God. Karen, thank you for being on the
Thank you so
program.
much. Appreciate
Dennis,
it.
Thank you,
thank you
Pastor.
for coming in. Dennis Ryma, not Rima. I said Rima earlier, but I'm
I've
so
been
glad.
called worse. I've
Have you
been
been
called
called
worse,
worse?
yeah.
But you know, I thank you for watching the program today, and I thank you for letting God touch your heart. God bless you.